Okay, good evening, everybody. This is a little pre-recording for the 2021 Merlin Rocket AGM. The intention of this is to give you all a flavour for what the AGM entails, and it's really intended to make the AGM as efficient as possible, so we can all go about our either our holiday in Salcombe or our days if we're not in Salcombe. As you know, the Merlin Rocket AGM is going to be both a virtual and also a physical affair. More information about this is available on the forum, which has just been published today. And if you wish to attend, you must attend virtually. You must speak to or email Martin Smith at the membership email address. And there's a typo in the magazine. I think we got some dates wrong, but the cutoff for that is this Friday. So yeah, make sure you do that. More information is on the forum and also social media, and I believe has also been sent out to Merlin Rocket attendees via the Salcombe Yacht Club email address. The format for this is that each person has been given each resolution, has been given a 2 3-minute slot. We're going to, we are recording this, and you can understand a little bit more about the resolution so that hopefully the AGM is more efficient. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the Merlin Rocket class rules resolutions. As you can see, we've got 10 resolutions here, and we'll crack on straight away. So first of all, we have Dan Alsop with class rule 21.1 in relation to weighing boats. Dan, you're on silent, you're on mute.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to be able to give this pre-presentation that Chris has organised. I hope it goes well. First of all, a little introduction before I get stuck into the individual rules. The class rules resolution being put forward have been drafted by the Rules Subcommittee, and that comprises David Downs, Stuart Bates, Ben Jones, and myself, Dan Alsop. To avoid any ambiguity, and in reflection of the outcome of the 2019 AGM, we've drafted them in full detail, hopefully in the format that, should they be adopted, they'd be accepted and published by the RYA in due course. However, you should note that certain amendments to the precise wording might be required by the RYA. Furthermore, the association rules grant the class chairman the authority to accept minor amendments to the resolutions during the discussion at the general meeting. And hopefully that won't be necessary, but the opportunity to present amendments for consideration should arise. I'll go on with the resolutions which are being shared between myself and David Downs and Stuart Bates. Right, the first one is CR 21.1, and it's to simplify the arrangements for the reweighing of boats. Now, this amendment would merely alter the administrative requirements when the weight of a boat has to be adjusted. At present, if the weight or the number of correctors is altered, then a new certificate is required by the rules. And that means that any boat found underweight at the Champs weigh-in couldn't race until the new certificate has arrived, which is obviously not happened in the past and is undesirable. It's impractical, and it doesn't really reflect existing practice, whereby in most cases, unless there's a major remeasurement going on, a measurer just certifies the changes and endorses the certificate. So this resolution just formalises that practice, makes sure it would be done properly and in a controlled fashion, and that the ROA master copy of the certificate would be endorsed accordingly. So if you read the wording carefully, I think that's what this rule would bring about. And I'm quite confident that it would make life easier for everybody and make sure we're in full compliance with the rules. I'll move on to the next one, which is CR21-2. And this is a bit more complicated. It's the proposal to modify the rules on plank widths. Now, we did talk about this one at the 2019 AGM, but although majority of people were in favour of it, it didn't get through. And one of the difficulties we had that year was that I presented the rules in generalised terms rather than in detail, and that caused some misgivings. And so there weren't enough people voting for it to get through. What we've done now is specify it in detail, and reading the rules, you should understand that. I thought I would merely point out on the diagram I've got behind me, for those of you who don't understand or don't know what the terminology stacked planks means, what the boats would look like. There's a loophole in the existing rules, which means although we have to have a clinker format hull, and there's a maximum hull width, a plank width, there's no minimum. So the possibility was, if I can show the diagram now, whereas the top picture would show a conventional Merlin with about 8 planks and a bilge keel here, centre line of the boat here, water line about there, and the riser floor measurement point just above the water line. If people or builders were to build a boat with 2 or 3 very narrow planks just above the water line, because the measurement point's on the outside there, or can be situated there, it gives the prospect of moving the planks at the water line in and narrowing the water line width, which history has shown is an important feature. Basically, unless the Merlin's got a minimum beam at the water line, then it won't be competitive. So the rule, which is a very, very simple one, merely says that at mid-length, there's a minimum plank width of about, I think, 130 mil to make sure that this can't be done. And it's important to get this rule put through just in case somebody builds a boat like this. If it turned out to be ultra competitive, it would mean we'd all need new hull shells, which with the inevitable expense and of course actually no benefit to the sailing experience. So I would commend everyone involved, please, to vote in favour of this resolution. I'll now move on to CR21-3, sails. Now, this proposal reflects the outcome of recommendations made in the independent report on the class rules, which was originally organised by past chairman Martin Smith. And together with resolution CR21-7, it addresses translation issues which arose from the conversion of the class rules to the ISAF format. And many of you will recall there have been difficulties in the recent past of what spars might be allowed on the boat. In the past, the old pre-ISAF rules basically said you could have any spars except where they were restricted by the rules. So you're only allowed 1 mast, you weren't allowed a bowsprit or a bumpkin. Various things were banned like that, but apart from that, you could do what you wanted. Now, because of the way the ISAF ones were worded, with the mandatory and optional, so on, ambiguity came in, which was never the intention. But because I think most of the ISAF rules are drafted round one designs, that crept in. And the idea now is to revert as closely as we possibly can, and I think we've got it spot on, to the meaning of the pre-ISAF rules. Although the wording's a bit different because we've had to reflect the ISAF terminology and definitions, the meaning, I think, should come out the same. So those two resolutions need to be taken together, really. And it would mean, for instance, that spinnaker cranes would be allowed again, whereas at the moment they're probably not. We had them in the past. We've seen fit to put a restriction on them to make sure they're no bigger than they used to be, and one or two other things like that. I'll leave, David Downs is going to talk a bit about more about the sales side of things, but that's the thinking behind this resolution, and I hope it can be taken as a whole, because that would reflect the intention of the proposal, and I commend it to the meeting. I'll move on to a simple one, which is CR21-4, headsail stiffening. Now, this is another suggestion from the authors of the class rule review. They're the people from Devon, Ben Jennings and John Turner, and beg your pardon, Phil Morrison, and who gave a lot of thought looking through this and have been a great help. The suggestion is from sailmakers, I believe, saying it's quite difficult to stiffen up the head of the jibs we use now with the wide top on them, and it involves sewing in sail window material and so on to get them to stand up. The idea is that if we were allowed a batten or a headboard, which is what stiffening would comprise, then there should be no cost implications, but the sails should remain usable for a longer time. So it seems like a good idea, and with the sails will look just the same, but it would also overcome the difficulty had when some of the jibs appeared with a little batten in the top or a little spar in the top last year. Overcome that one. Right, next one, another simple one, CR21-5, building plaques. The rules at the moment require the building plaque on modern boats to be screwed on the inside of, or displayed on the inside of the transom. Now, some boats don't have an inside of the transom you can see without climbing inside the rear tank. So it just gives the flexibility to display the plaque somewhere sensible and close to that position, without the problem of that some boats have at the moment. They're not compliant with the rules. So that's a simple one. Hopefully no argument there. So that's the end of the 5 I've had to present, and I hope you found that helpful when you come to read the rules and consider what you're going to vote on at the meetings. Thank you very much.
Okay, we now have CR21-6, I believe. Is that Stuart?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Right. The idea of this rule is to prohibit the building of rudder gantries, which could extend the waterline of the hull. So what we have done here is we said on a vertical axis, no further than 50 millimeters from the aftmost point of the transom, that the rudder, that it has to be the center of the rotation. Now, this is in line with the fittings that are currently available and should keep the class looking nice. Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Stuart. CR 21.7 rig configuration. David.
I think Dan's actually already talked about 21.7, and I think I really need to go back and talk about 21.3. I hope we can do this with the editing. So 21.3 is, as Dan said earlier, all about realigning the rules with what was there prior to the adjustment to the ISAF format. And the intention is to make it clear that the mandatory sails are a single mainsail and a single head sail, and that both are trilateral as defined in the equipment rules of sailing, and that there is the option of a spinnaker, and that's anything other than those three sails is not allowed. Currently, the rules mention the prohibition of double luff mainsails about 4 times. And the intention here is to remove all those and just have one place where the double luff mainsail, including mainsails passed around the mast and back on themselves, are prohibited. And on the head sail, to reinstate the words that were there prior to the conversion to ISAF, that makes sure that the jib is only supported by the luff and a single sheet. That's the changes. That's a proposal, really bringing it back in line with what was there prior to the change to ISAF.
Okay, I don't think we need to do any editing to this. Should we just talk about 21.7 again? I don't know if that's Dan.
I can do it.
Oh, yeah,
21.7. So as Dan said earlier, this is all about aligning the rules with what was there prior to the change to the ISAF configuration, which previously effectively any spar that wasn't specifically prohibited by the rules was allowed. By changing to ISAF format, we had the words mandatory and optional, and see mandatory there was the mast and boom, optional being spinnaker poles and whisker pole. And the interpretation of that was deemed to be that if it wasn't mentioned there, then it wasn't allowed, which gave us problems, which would give us problems with things like mast struts, like posts for supporting the jib sheet fairleads, and potentially things like a hoop. In line with the fact that this is an open class, we're proposing to make the mandatory adjust the mast and the boom, and everything, any other spar is therefore allowed, providing it isn't otherwise restricted. And it should be noted that many spars are prohibited within the rules. So there's no bowsprits, there's no bumpkins, there's no gaffs, there's no sprits, and many others like that are prohibited either by the class rules or by the equipment rules of sailing.
Thank you, David.
Okay.
Head sail luff spars.
21.8 head sail luff spars. This is purely being put in there because now spars are generally allowed, so we don't have a wing type luff spar that would effectively increase the area of the jib. So this is just saying we're going to prohibit all luff spars, bring it into another spar that is prohibited within the rules. Okay.
So CR 21.9 is a proposal by John Fildes, who has put this together. John's not available to discuss this, but I've obviously included it here for you to read it at your leisure. If you press pause on this, so if you wish. CR 21.10 is a resolution that I've put forward, and really it's very limited what you can use in terms of portable equipment in the Merlin Rocket class, and we all know that digital technology has came on leaps and bounds with the use of GoPros video and audio equipment, GPS devices, etc. And I feel personally that that using those would be really beneficial for the class in terms of publicity, but also to help people from a training perspective once they're back on shore. So I put this resolution together, which basically it explains that we're able to record heading position, speed, or provide photography, video, and audio, provided that this information is not accessible on board during the race. GPS trackers, such as the ones that we're going to be using at the championships in North Berwick, are permitted, and any device that measures or records data other than that is prohibited. So we're not intending to get any sort of great benefit from it during the racing. We're not going to have any benefit from it from the racing during the racing, but it will help with publicity. It will help with training and hopefully get more people into sailing Merlin Rockets. So, blimey, that didn't actually take us quite as long as I was expecting. But we're now going to move on to the Merlin Rocket Association rules. So they're the rules that govern how we go about things like the AGM and the championships, etc. So we have 3 rules, and they were numbered 1, 2, 3, but I'm actually going to talk about them. We're going to vote in the opposite for reasons I will not bother you about. And a link to the association rules is in the link below. So the first resolution, or AR 21.3, is basically we're reviewing, and we've updated a number of the owners association rules. The intention is, in essence, to make things more clear, and the reason that we've identified this is because we've gone through a lot of heartache through the COVID pandemic trying to interpret our own rules, which doesn't seem quite right. We're also looking to future-proof, and one big part of that is that the association or the committee are looking to pass the potential to use virtual and hybrid attendance at meetings, which will benefit, I think, the class in general. So I've broken this down into 8 separate resolutions. The first is basically a tick all box, and then the following 7 are specific items within the class association rules, specific sections, so that if one, if you don't like what I've done in section 3, then you can vote against that, but you don't have to vote against the whole process or resolution. And I just like to thank Tim Harridge and the rest of the committee for spending a lot of time looking. Okay, so I'll breeze over the first one. Basically, if you want the full suite to be accepted, then please tick that box. Resolution 21.3 part 2 is to look at a very minor change to section 2. It's very minor, so yeah, I would be hopeful that this one's going to pass. Moving forwards, the third resolution as part of this suite is to tidy up the voting mechanism, the definition of the vote, and a general meeting ballot. So the definition of the vote has moved, I think, to section 6, which seems to be a more appropriate location rather than having it in the membership section, and that has made the actual text in this section significantly shorter. But we've also made it slightly more succinct in how we're writing it, albeit that we don't have, we haven't actually changed a great deal or really anything in the wording or what's intended from it. Moving on, the fourth part of this this resolution is to update section 4, and this was to tidy up and to show the roles and responsibilities of the election process for both officers and members of the committee. Now, all of the information presented on the right is actually in there in the left, but it's very much more difficult to understand exactly what's going on. So as a consequence, we've put in this table, which I hope shows it much more clearly what and how the committee is organised. And the only change that I have brought in here, or intended to bring in here, is that previously the vice chairman had to come from within the existing committee, and now that is and continues to be the case for the chairman. But the vice chairman, it doesn't sit well with me, because very often people come from outside of the or want to come out from outside of the committee to become the vice chairman, spend those 2 years getting to understand the class, and then potentially, if voted on, to become chairman. So that's the main change there. The only other point is that for the honorary treasurer role, the previous text said that that they should arrange for auditing of the accounts. I've taken that out on the advice of the current treasurer, and the reason for that will be discussed at the AGM as part of the treasurer's report. So I won't go into it any further here. The fifth resolution change is again very minor. We're just trying to simplify the wording and make it clearer. So this is in relation to principal events. So we're starting to get into the meat of this. So I've got both resolutions here on the screen. Basically, I've separated the section 6 into administrative or just simple changes to make the text more simple, more easily understood. And then resolution 7 is relating to section 6, but it's talking about permitting virtual attendance at meetings. Now, at the moment, we've got a hybrid meeting. The reason for that is because we're able to use COVID legislation, emergency legislation, which has gone through. In a normal year, we wouldn't necessarily be able to do that. So we want to future-proof that. We want to try to reduce our carbon footprint. We don't want people necessarily to drive for 4 hours to Salcombe or North Berwick or wherever the general meeting is, when actually they could attend virtually and be able to vote and listen to the arguments and contribute just as well. So that is the reason why we've put that forwards. I very much hope that you do vote in favour of this. Yeah, we'll see what's said at the AGM. Just to be clear here, we've not changed anything in terms of the number of people to require a quorum, which is 25 members for the sort of quorum of the overall meeting, and 40 members to permit rule changes. And we've also not changed the minimum requirement to pass rule changes, which is 3/4 of those present. So I don't see that there's big issues. Now, I would like to point out one thing, just an error that I spotted today. It says in the conduct of meetings here about an EGM shall be called by the chairman upon receipt of 50 full members, writing or signed by 54 members. And then I've accidentally put in May, which is not my intention. So we'll be voting on it being shall. So we'll make that change, and that will be the vote that we'll make. Sorry about that. The final one is resolution 8. At the moment, the actual subscription fee of 25 and 15 is included in the rules, and this just doesn't seem to be the appropriate place to put it. It's not a rule; it's a price for membership, or cost for membership. So on that basis, we're proposing to remove that and to say that that subscriptions due shall be agreed at the general meeting, and that will be every year. And I can't imagine that we'll be making changes on every year, but at least that then needs to be voted through annually. That's it from me. We now have Pete Slack, who's going to be talking about the Merlin Rocket. Basically, it's a very similar proposal to the virtual one that I've just talked about, and he has made clear to me that should my proposal go through for virtual attendance, that he would withdraw this proposal, whether or not it gets the required number of votes. So I'll play this now, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it.
Merlin Rocket Association, and I'd like to talk to you today about my proposal, AR21/2, item 7 on the agenda for the Merlin Rocket AGM 2021. The proposal is about changing Rule 6, conduct of meetings. This proposal will enable the use of virtual meetings and electronic ballots. So in the following 2 minutes, I'll give you a quick briefing of the proposed rule change. You can also find details of this rule change on page 37 of the summer edition of the Merlin Rocket magazine. And as you're all sitting comfortably by the COVID rules in table of 6, we shall begin. In overview, the essence of the rule change is to enable meetings and business of the Merlin Rocket Association to be conducted online. The government health and workplace requirements of the ongoing COVID pandemic has brought to the fore the needs of all businesses to move towards online meetings. Online meeting technology, like Zoom, when used appropriately, provides many benefits, including reduced travel, efficient use of time, and of course, safety in a pandemic. The Electoral Reform Society also provides electronic ballots. A further benefit for a geographically spread saving association is that online meetings allow a greater involvement by members who cannot travel to a general meeting. The technical details of the proposed changes are in essence Rule 6, Section 5. The key change is to Part B and Part C. So Part B will now read, provide at least 44 members are present or have voted online. Part C will say, provided that an electronic proposal of a full members' results is not less than 75% of votes cast in favour. Rule 6, Part 7 is also updated to bring it in line with Part 5. So, in summary, I urge you to vote for this proposal, help modernise the class association, provide members better access to the running of the association, and help your dedicated committee with their time management. Thank you. Peter Slack.
Okay, so that was from Pete Slack. I very much hope that you could hear that.
Merlin Rocket
Oh
Association.
gosh, you're about to hear it twice. Okay, and yeah, I've just pointed out that should the committee's resolution on virtual attendance be passed, then Pete would withdraw his resolution. The final resolution is again from John Files. I'll again leave it up on this PowerPoint for your review, but John is not available to go through this afternoon, this evening, and that's it. I hope that wasn't too painful for you all. I want to stress the importance of people coming to the AGM, and on that basis, whether that's physical or virtual attendance, on that basis, if you are listening to this because you are keen to attend, but you know that there are people who are not, then please try to enthuse them to come. If we don't have those the magic number of 40 full members attending, we're unable to get all of this through, and the good work of Dan and his team and the committee and also full members who have put resolutions forward is wasted for another year. So I really would stress the importance of making sure that the Merlin Rocket doesn't stagnate, and that we can move forwards and yeah, continue to enjoy a really vibrant and innovative class for years to come. So thank you very much to Lou for doing a lot of the behind the works stuff there, and Stuart, Dan and David also for joining. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye bye.